All right. Look, I didn't want to have to tell you, but I've fallen behind at work. I mean, I can't keep up. Recently, they've let go a few people. Every day, there are fewer and fewer people doing the same amount of work. They have me running the accounting department entirely by myself. And no, not management. I have not been promoted. You see, it's just me. There's no one to manage. I do everything. I'm also expected to answer phone calls because there's no receptionist. Fix computers because there's no tech department. Field customer complaints because there's no customer service. I'm in charge of the mailroom, the cafeteria, janitorial services, research and development. Last week they let go human resources. The whole department. And I received a memo, which I actually typed up myself because there's no secretary, saying that I have to familiarize myself with all state and federal guidelines. Tomorrow I am mediating all employee disputes and I don't know what I'm doing. I would ask the legal department for advice, but I've never studied law and I wouldn't know what to tell myself. On top of everything else, I'm in charge of taking the CEO's dog out to poop 4 times a day. At regular intervals. He has a stomach problem and he's on a very strict schedule. No, I know what was happening to these fellas. And I know that even without a depression, most of them were in a pretty bad economic box even before. Talk about your roaring 20s. Roaring in New York, maybe, or roaring in the slick magazines. But in Canada, it was just a lot of whimpering. But back to me, see, I didn't like what was happening to me. In that office, I could see the rottenness of the relief system and what it did to people. I found myself turning into a hateful person. Spiteful. Taking it out on some guy when it really couldn't have been his fault. Yelling at my wife. Cuffing my kids. Snarling at my neighbors, and why? Why? Because I knew that I was part of a system that was wrong. And it was turning me wrong. And to protect my wife and kids, I had to keep going wrong. And more wrong. Just like you can't be a little pregnant.
Will it be, my friend? Some candy for the sweet tooth? A little alcohol? Expressly for the purposes of work-related injuries. Do you understand, miss?
No, sir, nothing of the sort. Actually, I just came to get the paper. From Ottawa?
Of course, my boy. Something of special interest? Today?
Just the usual. As opposed to any old chum?
Old? Mind your elders, you. Hey.
Keep that old horse before the cart. So what the heck's the use of crying? Why should we curse? We gotta get better. The gas gets worse, and to add to it, we got hard. We got hard. We got hard.
One late night, I was trying to get to my friend's house, and I had never been there before, but they told me that the landmark to look for their house was the park, because they lived just near to the park. So I couldn't find the park, but I did find a graveyard, and this is what I thought they meant as in the park, the graveyard. So I went to the graveyard, and there was this feeling, this uncomfortable, unsettling feeling that it just made me feel not welcome. And I felt like there was going to be someone behind me or something. But the next morning, I came back the same way to come home. And I went through the park, but there was no tombstones. There was no graveyard. It's bizarre.